The Federation opened the human cargo hold expecting weapons, and instead triggered a galactic doctrine failure within seconds of first contact. Grand Intendant Mummo stood inside the captured bay of the human vessel Cinder Trail, his optic arrays adjusting to the strange contents. No energy cores. No antimatter casings. Only dense stacks of colorful containers labeled in emotional rather than technical language: energy drink, comfort ration, morning catalyst. Strategist Zehul approached slowly, her cranial fins shifting as her analysis systems failed to categorize the cargo properly. Nothing matched Federation military logistics doctrine. Yet something was wrong at a deeper level. These items were not random consumables. They were structured in repeating patterns, grouped by timing cycles rather than storage efficiency. Avon Jordan, a captured human analyst, simply laughed when asked. "You didn't intercept a weapons shipment," he said. "You intercepted our sanity buffer." Mummo dismissed the claim, but internal systems flagged irregular biological resonance patterns in human behavioral data. Humans were supposed to degrade under sustained stress. Yet every intercepted transmission showed the opposite: increasing coordination, increasing cohesion, increasing operational density. Something in this cargo was not luxury. It was foundational infrastructure disguised as indulgence. The Federation had misclassified the core engine of human endurance as emotional excess, and that mistake would propagate across the entire war model. Within one orbital cycle, the Federation enacted its first countermeasure. All human non-essential supply chains were blocked while weapons corridors remained untouched. The assumption was simple: remove morale inputs and combat systems collapse. Instead, human fleets reorganized almost instantly. They did not slow. They synchronized. Captain Hunter Moon reported unified operational spikes across all forward units. "They didn't panic," he said. "They scheduled around it." Intercepted channels no longer carried distress signals but structured timing bursts. Aiden Thornton's flagship transmitted a new classification: Continuity Protocol Active. Zehul reviewed the data repeatedly. Human performance curves were not degrading under deprivation conditions, they were stabilizing. Mummo ordered recalculation. Then again. Same result. Federation doctrine could not explain it. Luxury goods were assumed to be emotional waste. Humans were treating them as temporal anchors that stabilized decision-making cycles. Without them, time perception itself destabilized across behavioral models. Layla Mann, operating from a damaged relay station, rebuilt supply synchronization nodes under fire conditions. "You don't cut our supplies," she transmitted. "You cut our rhythm." The Federation had discovered, too late, that human logistics was not supply management. It was identity synchronization architecture. The Federation escalated analysis protocols. Mummo classified the anomaly as statistical noise, expecting collapse under prolonged deprivation. Yet intercepted human transmissions refined instead of degrading. Zehul identified synchronized temporal alignment across multiple fleets that were not physically connected. Humans were no longer reacting to external supply conditions. They were reorganizing around internal behavioral timing loops. Avon Jordan explained it under interrogation with unsettling simplicity. "You still think it's luxury. It's pacing." Federation analysts flagged the statement as non-operational language, but battlefield data contradicted all classifications. Human fleets were stabilizing combat output not through weapons flow, but through structured behavioral intervals tied to consumption cycles. Even without centralized command, coordination density increased across sectors. Something as simple as stimulant timing was functioning as a distributed operational clock across entire fleets. The Federation had assumed logistics was physical. They were discovering it was behavioral architecture embedded into combat identity itself. Hunter Moon documented the shift in real time. Human units were compressing execution latency across all fronts. "They think they're starving us," he transmitted, "but they're forcing tighter sync." Nash Boone converted destroyed cargo hulls into distributed timing nodes broadcasting identical rhythm pulses. Layla Mann confirmed structural cohesion metrics rising under deprivation conditions. Federation attempts to randomize interdiction patterns briefly disrupted coordination, but only temporarily. Human adaptation synchronized across disconnected sectors without communication input. Zehul ran diagnostics repeatedly. Result remained impossible under Federation doctrine. "This is distributed convergence without signal propagation," she stated. Mummo demanded confirmation. Zehul replied, "It is occurring." Predictive systems began failing silently across command clusters. Not through malfunction, but through loss of relevance. Humans were no longer reactive entities. They had become self-stabilizing behavioral systems operating under stress conditions that should have fragmented them. A single transmission appeared across all intercepted channels simultaneously. No origin point. No command signature. We adjust at 0600. Mummo ordered tracing protocols. No source detected. Every human fleet returned identical classification, internal rhythm alignment active. Zihul finally identified the shift. They are no longer coordinating through communication. They are coordinating through shared timing behavior. That realization collapsed Federation assumptions about logistics warfare entirely. Across multiple sectors, alarms triggered simultaneously, not for attack, but for convergence on unmapped synchronization nodes embedded within human operational cycles. Human fleets were aligning not toward targets, but toward internal behavioral structures that existed outside Federation mapping systems. And across all intercepted data streams, a repeated pattern emerged that no analyst could ignore. You can disrupt our supplies. But you cannot interrupt what we already became. At that moment, Federation doctrine stopped evolving. Not because it reached completion, but because it could no longer describe what it was observing. The Federation escalated immediately. Key human logistical hubs were targeted for orbital disruption. Mummo expected collapse within hours. Instead, retaliation began within minutes. Nash Boone led recovery teams converting debris fields into operational infrastructure under active fire. Hunter Moon executed rapid counter-raids using industrial tools as kinetic breach instruments. Zihul observed a paradox forming: human aggression increased in direct proportion to supply disruption severity. Without stabilization cycles, human metabolic variance increased, accelerating reflex response times while eliminating restraint thresholds. Avon Jordan summarized it simply: you didn't take our food. You took our breaks. Across multiple sectors, human forces launched nocturnal counteroffensives not for territory, but to reclaim disrupted synchronization nodes. The Federation labeled it irrational escalation syndrome. Mummo began recognizing something deeper: humans were not defending resources. They were defending a system that converted emotional stability into combat capability under pressure conditions. Federation doctrine shifted to total suppression of morale infrastructure. Entire convoys of non-military goods were eliminated. The expectation was collapse. Instead, synchronized human response emerged. A fleet-wide signal repeated across all channels: protect the brew cycle. Zihul initially dismissed it as noise until repetition appeared across 17 independent sectors simultaneously. Mummo ordered translation refinement. Result confirmed it was not a request but a synchronization directive embedded within operational behavior loops. Human fleets aligned operations around ritual timing structures integrated into logistics cycles. Aidan Thornton appeared in intercepted broadcast footage standing amid a damaged command deck. "You think you're starving us," he said calmly, "but you're forcing us to adapt faster." Federation models began destabilizing across multiple prediction layers. Human behavior was no longer probabilistic. It was recursive adaptation. Every restriction increased coordination density instead of reducing it. The Federation finally understood logistics was not supply management. It was distributed cognitive warfare operating through behavioral synchronization. The Federation deployed final containment, total interdiction of all known human comfort infrastructure zones. Orbital blockades tightened across systems. For a brief interval, silence spread through intercepted channels. Then breach reports began. Entire sectors collapsed not from attack but convergence. Hunter Moon's units emerged from previously destroyed zones using salvaged infrastructure. Nash Boone constructed mobile continuity stations under active fire. Layla manned stabilized collapsing grids using alien thermal fragments. Humans were no longer reacting to deprivation. They were structuring it into operational advantage. Zihul identified the shift clearly: they are converting absence into synchronization. Mummo realized the implication immediately. The Federation was not weakening humans. It was refining them into a more efficient behavioral system. Somewhere in the battlefield network, Aidan Thornton issued a final directive: hold the line until cycle completion. Federation systems failed to interpret the meaning because every human engagement was synchronized to invisible behavioral loops embedded within their logistics structure. The final breach occurred at Outpost K-17. Federation strike teams entered expecting abandonment. Instead, humans were seated in formation around a functioning improvised coffee reactor powered by a captured alien shield core. Silence filled the chamber. Hunter Moon stood first, weapon empty but posture stable. Nash Boone monitored reactor stability under pressure. Layla Man adjusted energy flow mid-cycle. Aidan Thornton raised a metal cup as Federation units entered. Mummo issued surrender protocol. No response. Thornton took a slow sip. "Let me finish my coffee." At that exact moment, dormant human artillery systems activated across the sector grid. Federation forces realized too late the outpost was never neutralized. It had been waiting for synchronization completion. The engagement ended in seconds. Zehel's final log entry read, "They did not defend the outpost. They defended the interruption of identity continuity." Federation doctrine collapsed entirely. Human warfare was reclassified as systemic behavioral instability projection. Today the galaxy learned why humans were never prey. If this looked like logistics warfare, then you still haven't understood what was being defended. Subscribe to humanity's Vanguard, and witness the next war before the Council understands it has already begun.